like hear that was obviously exaggerated, but I hear my accent so much when I say YouTube and other things, but it is setting it up. So I'll just slowly start to say some things briefly here as people log on. But welcome everyone to our 11:30 workshop, the Affirmation Card Deck workshop with artist Nichole Ray. We are very excited you guys are all here joining us. I'll maybe just spotlight my video for a sec while I tell you a few hot tips as you join us. You have a supply list that you would have seen on probably when you access this video, but Nichole will be running through all of that too. And I will plan to drop in the chat the link to get your PDFs printed to use the affirmation list that Nichole has created for you. And we can drop that in even later on too, because I know the chat doesn't show up for people if they log in later. And so I'm going to tell you really quick some tech tips that we try to tell everybody when we do virtual workshops, and then I'll introduce Nichole Ray. So here's my tech tips. Number one, you can be on video or off video. We do love when we see you, but you don't have to choose to be on video today if you wouldn't like to, but you can also kind of just choose your own adventure. If you have a question, you could go on video or not. And then we do have you stay muted whenever you're not talking, just so there's not crazy feedback. My dogs were just barking. That was happening. That's helpful when other people don't have to hear that. But we do want you to ask questions. The benefit of doing this live on Zoom with us today is that you can actually type in the chat. We'll kind of be watching for that at different times. You can also unmute yourself to ask a question too. So please don't hesitate to do that at any point. And then this is recorded and the recording will live on our YouTube channel, which we're just utilizing now for the 11th annual Unglued Craft Fest. And so it is the virtual fest today. You should definitely shop online. Ungluedcraftfest.com will get you to 55 makers that are selling their amazing wares. And I'm excited to introduce to you today, Nichole, artist Nichole Ray. I'm going to add you as a spotlight for a minute. Is our amazing instructor. She has been teaching with us and her studio and with her practice for years now. And she is coming to you live, I believe, in Florida today. Yep. She's done tons of stuff with the Craft Fest. And so we're just really excited that you get to learn from her today. I'm going to spotlight your video and I'm going to remove my spotlight. That's a better plan. And if anyone has questions, please don't hesitate to ask. And thank you all so much for joining us.
All right. Thank you, Ashley. And wow, am I grateful to be part of the 11th annual Unglued Craft Fest, especially being in Florida. Which took me for one of my family members, partners is out here for an essential worker job. So to be part of the Unglued Craft Fest from miles away is just very meaningful. I usually am set up on the second floor at the Plains Art Museum with a room filled with all of the supplies that I'm going to go through today and have you create and have a daily practice with me. And this practice is unique because I'm going to be able to be with you for the next hour, sharing to you about the art of daily practice, having a creative practice, cultivating your creativity, creating some space, and then creating your own really unique I Am affirmation card deck, something that you can work on today and you can implement into your weekends going forth, having a little bit of creativity going on. So I will be admitting people as I see people come in. Otherwise, let's just go through the supply list. So there are going to be a few things that if you don't have, you can make a little note for yourself and write that down and then go out hunting later today or this week or next weekend to pick up some extra supplies to have. So there'll be a few things that you are going to need to have. You are going to need to have some index style cards. So even if you don't have index cards, they can be blank or with lines. It doesn't matter because one side of the lined cards is blank. And so usually I have the blank side be the back. If you don't have this actual card, if you have cardstock, you can cut it down to your own specific size. So if you love a square format like Instagram, you can cut your papers down in a square format. So embrace the imperfections if you're just using a scissor. If you are somebody who has one of those fancy paper cutters, get your groove on and get your papers cut down. So you need some type of card, and maybe you even have a different style of card. You can really use anything, including playing cards, which is from my art journaling book that I did years ago. I actually used playing cards. They're a bit smaller, but you have 54 cards to work on, and they're a great way to do like some artist trading cards and so on. So some type of card to use to create with, okay? Then you are going to need a glue stick. You are going to need a scissor. Give me just a second. I've got to get up and get that. All right, here we go. All right, you're gonna need a scissor. Glue sticks work the best, but if you have some other type of glue, even Elmer's liquid glue, you can use that. And if you have Elmer's glue and you happen to have a little plastic or glass jar and a paintbrush, you can use glue and paint it on. So if you don't happen to have a glue stick, try that method, okay? If you have other sticky adhesive methods that you want to use, do your thing, okay? We're just using it to get our paper glued down. The next bit would be, if you were in my studio with me, there would be something called the famous paper bucket. And so you are going to want miscellaneous papers. Now, the truth is that the papers don't come this small. I actually sit while watching one of my favorite Netflix shows. I take scrapbooking paper, I take dictionary pages, book pages, music sheets. If you had paint samples, maps. So if you're a thrifter and you want to go out thrifting for some unique papers and books, you can do that. And then you've got your traditional style of printed scrapbooking paper. Scrapbooking paper, there's a whole tongue tie there, is very intimidating when it's this big. You can't fit it on the table. It's just, what do you do with it? So I do invite you, if you have some scrapbooking paper somewhere, tear out some of your favorite pages and then fold them in half and start to rip them, and then fold them in half again and rip that. Or if you're like, Nichole, did you just say rip paper? Like, I can't stand the sound of that, or I don't like the rough edges, then go ahead and grab your scissor and then cut the paper into smaller pieces. It just makes it more tangible. And specifically for this project, it's very freeing to have a little basket with your paper in it, and you can, go through them and pick out the colors that are catching your eye today. So you can really use any kinds of paper, including, let's say you go to the Target dollar section and you find a really cute notepad, and you really don't need that really cute notepad because you have a stack of them somewhere that you haven't even used yet, but you really want to get it, and then put some of those papers into your paper bucket. So even little notepads with little like lines on them, like a notebook, are really fun to use. And then if you go into a craft store, you can find different papers, whether it's like little library cards or little to-do lists. And those are really a fun way to use your love for office supplies to be able to use this paper as part of your creative practice. So it is a little bit of adventure to create your paper bucket, but it is really fun to do. So make a little note for yourself that building a little paper basket or a paper bucket is a great way to have your creative supplies available. Okay, so if you have big sheets of scrapbooking paper, and while I'm going through the rest of the supplies, feel free to maybe start cutting them down into smaller pieces, okay? Then there's going to be some optional supplies that you may or may not have, but you can work towards having a collection of rubber stamps, and I'll share some fun ways on using those supplies to create patterns and things. You don't need a lot of supplies. So that's really kind of the secret sauce to the creative practice. Is many of us know that we love supplies, or we have a lot of supplies, but right now where we're at, it's easy to get overwhelmed by having all those things. So if you do have a lot of supplies somewhere, I invite you to, grab a little basket and just grab a few things, grab a few washi tapes. You might be somebody who has 100 of them because you love them so much, but 100's a lot to work with right away. It's hard to make decisions, so washi tape is another supply to have. Have maybe 5 or 8 of them, 3 to 8 of them. You don't need a lot, okay? I find that your creativity has a little bit more space with a little less supplies around you, okay? So lots of different rubber stamps, and my tip is, find stamps that you like. Okay, and if you have supplies right now that you're just not vibing with, maybe give them to somebody, okay? Or maybe send them to the thrift store and let someone else find them, and give yourself permission to go use those 40, 50% off coupons at the craft stores and grab yourself some new supplies. A black marker or a black pen is nice to have, okay? Oil pastels. They are like crayons, but they have an oil base. And so I'll show you how I use these in my practice. All the mediums that I use for my art journaling practice are kind of dry mediums, which means I don't have to wait. So I don't use any watercolor or any paints. I use things that I can just keep going with the creative practice. But if you're somebody who has a love for one of those mediums, that's where you're going to get the opportunity to take in my creative practice and then put a spin on it with what it is that you love to do as well. Okay, so oil pastels. So if you don't have oil pastels, crayons is an option to add a little extra color. If you have a love for markers, colored pens, if you like to doodle or draw, bring some of those mediums in as well. Okay, so let me take a look. Oh, the last but not least is what Ashley had mentioned is I did create some printable word lists. So one of them is just lists of IMs. So if you are like, hey, I want to make these myself, this is nothing more than a Word document. You write the word over and over and change the font. Okay. I did include 2 versions of the actual affirmations. So you've got something like this, and then there's also going to be a youth list, which just means that I've shared my practice with youngsters as young as 3rd grade, 2nd grade, and they're working on bringing in some of those positive words and positive characteristics about them. And so that word list is great if you've got kids at home or want to share this practice with some youngsters to be able to use some of those words that they're learning about. Okay, and that means too that if you've got a bit of a family and you want to bring in this creative practice and you want to make your own word list for words that can help them what they're practicing with, you can do that as well. Okay, if at any point in time you have no idea how to find this word list, send me an email at artistnicholeray@gmail.com and I'll get that over to you. So you got your word list. So, all right, here we go. Is everyone ready? Okay. I'm going to show you my table, okay? And now you have to keep in mind, first of all, let's go back. This is important. Okay. All right. So if you're new to the Art of Daily Practice, the Art of Daily Practice is a creative healing arts practice to bring inspiration, healing, and guidance into your life through a collection of creative journaling and affirmation practices. I am very passionate about meeting you at the beginning. So I hope some of you saw in the little verbiage that says you don't need to be artsy, crafty, or creative to be here with me. And if you're like, I'm not really artsy, crafty, or creative, you are my most ideal student. Yes. And if you're like, hey, I'm super creative, this feels really good, then yes, thank you for showing up as well. But I'm really passionate about the ones that don't think that they are creative. Creativity is an energy, it's a fuel. Maybe you're not creative with specific art supplies, but you're creative in how you communicate, creative how you cook, creative how you decorate your home, creative how you dress, creative how you raise your children or take care of your animals. That's creativity. It's a fuel. And so I'm here to just kind of help you start to see creativity and having a practice in a different light. And so before we go any further, I want to share 2 little interactive practices that we're going to do because you are going to be working with I am affirmations in a moment. But I want to give you a couple of tools to have in your toolbox while you go through this practice. Okay, so first and foremost, we have to declare we have a daily practice together. If you have practiced with me before and you've done this, you are just going to restate this practice and strengthen it. If you're brand new, then this is a really good day because you're beginning your own daily practice at the 11th annual Unglued Craft Fest, which you'll remember forever. Okay, so here we go. You can repeat after me, which means that you can stay muted, okay? Normally I have everyone unmute themselves, but I think today I trust that you're gonna say this out loud in your own space. So here we go. I'm gonna say this affirmation and then I'm gonna go like this, and that means it's your turn, okay? So, and you'll repeat after me. Ready? I have a daily practice. Okay, there's like 11 of you here. Let's pick it up a little bit. Okay, here we go. I have a daily practice. Okay, one more time because 3 times is always better. I have a daily practice. Ooh, I felt that one. Very good. Okay, so the truth is there's nothing that you need to do to have a daily practice. It's the remembering that you have one. So many of us right now know that or feel that we've got to do things to be enough, to feel enough, to have something. But to practice for me means to go towards all you do in your life with love. Whether that love holds to go towards all you do in your life with inspiration, creativity, devotion, faith, trust, peace. You fill in what it is that you most need right now. But I'm here not to add one more thing to your life. I'm here to say, let's start to see all the areas of your life as a practice. I'm going to give you some tools today to help you navigate those areas of your life, but practice teaching your kids math, practice keeping your house organized, practice making those healthy choices and moving your body. The more you see it as a practice, for me in the last 8 years, I have more patience, I have more compassion, and that negative voice that has been very loud in my head for many years, which is why I stay very close to this work, softens. And you begin to cheer yourself on and you begin to go through that resistance. Resistance is very normal in a creative style practice or really anything in like self-care or taking care of yourself. Resistance, that feeling that you're just like, oh, I want to do it, but I don't want to do it. I want to let you know that feeling that resistance is a really good thing. And that's the nudge that says, hey, if you go towards whatever it is that you're about to do, if you do that creative practice with me, you might even feel it today, you're going to start to feel a shift from that of kind of this heavy, like fear, yucky stuff to that of this lighter love, whatever it is that you most need. Okay. The first 10 minutes of any type of practice, whether you're practicing gardening, practicing yoga, practice organizing your closet, the first 10 minutes is always not fun and uncomfortable. Put some music on and then use the practice, I forgive and release. I can't take this entire practice to teach you this practice, but I am going to have you repeat this out loud, and I'm going to show you how you can use it today as we're practicing. So you know the drill. I'm going to do this. The third time we do it, it's a little bit more exciting. So to forgive and release means to give love away into whatever it is that feels heavy, okay? This practice works if you use it, okay? If you think about using it, I can't guarantee it, but if you actually use it, it works. So repeat after me. I forgive and release. Turn. Okay. I forgive and release not being creative. Okay, some of you are like, okay, she's getting me now. I forgive and release not liking my art, not liking my work, not liking what I do. Okay, these are some examples. So I'm going to be showing you my card deck, and somewhere in your mind, you're going to make a mental picture of that. And while you're creating your card deck, that mental part of your mind, the monkey mind, might start to compare it and say, well, mine doesn't look like hers. And if you guys were all together, that's when your eyes start to wander on the table and start to be like, oh, hers is so much better than mine. And that's what takes us out of that practice. And so I'm very aware of those vibes, and I forgive and release is a tool to have in your toolbox to use it when those thoughts come up. Or if you're like, I just don't like this. I don't like it. I don't like the colors. When we're doing the card deck, if you don't like what you're working on, grab a new card. Give yourself permission to say, you know what? I'm kind of over that one for the moment. Set it off to the side. Keep going. And then most likely you'll pull back that card, add some more things, and see how that takes a place. If you're around someone right now or in a space and you're like, I don't really want to speak this out loud, you can also say it mindfully. So without speaking, in your mind, say, I'm super excited to be at the 11th annual Unglued Craft Fest. I forgive and release. Okay. So that means that if there are people around and you're like, I don't want to say this out loud, you can say it mindfully, and you can also journal it. Okay. So we are going to dive into our creative practice, but if at any point in time during the next little bit that we're creating, you start to get some feels, that's just not the way you want to feel, I want you to practice I forgive and release. Okay, so welcome to the art of daily practice. All right, here we go. So when you see a card like this, you might be like, wow, there's so many things going on with it. I'm going to be walking you through how you create a card that has multiple things going on with it. You've got your background, you've got your words cut out, you've got your washi tapes, you've got your stamps. And sometimes this is kind of like one of those aha moments when you're on Pinterest where you're just like, oh, this is so beautiful. Wow. And you're just like, I can't do this. Yes, you can. It is a practice. It is a process. So let's go through the process together. Then you're going to have the opportunity to create your cards and ask me any questions that you want to. Okay, so I like to work with 3 blank cards in front of me. Okay, so this is how I'm going to work today and how I'm going to lead you through. If you want to create what is kind of like a cohesive set of cards, so these were created in one setting, and then these 2 over here were created in another setting. Your cards may have what is kind of like a cohesive feel, or each card is going to be completely different. Okay, so that's a choice that you get to decide. Whatever feels well for you. I want you to do you. Okay, so some of the things that I'm going to show you, if you're just like, I don't like that, let your own creative spirit guide you. Okay, so if this is just too much, there's too many surfaces, take them away and go ahead and just work with one, okay? Or take them away, forgive and release, and see if they want to come back again, okay? So what you're going to do is you're going to go to your miscellaneous papers. Now, your papers, like I said, might be not torn down all the way. So go ahead and just start to look at the papers that you have. You can even use magazines in this case too. We're just needing some paper to work with. So really, I'm not thinking about what I'm going to be creating on here. I'm just going to have fun being like, what colors am I drawn to today? So I'm going to start making a pile of papers that I like, okay? I'm just going to start them over here. And this is where the more you do this practice, you'll start to see that you'll kind of work out of your comfort zone because you've got many cards to work with. And you also, if you have index cards, there's like 150 in the packet. So that means that you really get the opportunity to say, you know what? Yes, I'm always drawn to teals and magentas, but I'm also going to get out of my comfort zone. There's times where I'll feel like I'm in a pastel mood and I want to reach for more neutral colors. So that's where you really get the opportunity to tuck into, how are you feeling today? I've heard that the weather has been fairly nice back in Fargo, Moorhead, and so that might be where you're feeling a little bit more springy. And so just let yourself find some papers that you resonate with, okay? Now you don't need a lot because this isn't a lot of surface to work with. And so, I've got at least 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them. But this is just going to help you have a place to start, because I do know that it can be a little overwhelming to have all of this stuff around you. If at all your mind is somebody who is thinking about what you want your cards to look like before we start, that's okay. It's a very good skill set that you have. But let's just try forgiving and releasing so that we can be in the present moment and we can just allow these cards to evolve the way that we want to. Okay. So here's my paper. Okay. Now, if at any point in time I have the chat open, my screen's down a little bit, but I can still see it, you can ask me a question, or please just unmute yourself. You're not interrupting. I know it might feel a little uncomfortable to have your voice on, but most likely your question is relevant to someone else who is on here as well. So take courage and ask me questions as time goes on. Okay, so glue stick. Okay, so what I'm going to do here, I like to rip paper. Now, the nice thing about having these already torn up like this or cut is that it fits this card. I didn't plan this. This is just what happened. And this is what has been really fun. I've been sharing this practice probably now for 6-7 years, the affirmation card deck. And having papers that you don't have to do anything with is really fun. You don't have to think about it. So it doesn't matter what card you start with, but we are going to be covering our backgrounds. Okay, so that's where we need to start. Now, you may, because I've seen lots of different designs over the years, you may just want your white background. And that's just fine. If that's what you need today, just some open space, feel free to just embrace that and let that happen. So I can work where like I can leave this card here. I'm not done with it yet, but I want to keep this paper full. So I'm going to put this over here. Now, normally I don't step out this process. I just give you all the supplies and you have to just, in a sense, fend for yourself. Okay. So what I don't want in this case is for you to just feel like you have to copy what I'm doing. Okay. So if you're somebody who says, I want to have, one piece of paper in the middle and I want washi tape around it, you can do that. I'm just going to be giving you kind of my signature style, but really each of us has our own process. And so please just kind of be open to seeing where this stuff unfolds. Okay. Now, the unique thing about this one here is that I'm actually collaging on the other side of a card, but this is sticking off the edge. And so this is a great way to not have to really worry about that in the beginning. And then you can let the glue dry, but just cut that off. And now it fits. Okay. And it's okay. Sometimes my students will have their papers go off the edges a little bit, and that's really fun to do as well. So now, in this case, if I wanted to put this one here, I could lay over that extra if I wanted to, but also you can work in smaller chunks. So if you've never ripped paper before, or maybe you've ripped paper because you didn't have a scissor, try ripping paper with me. You might need to forgive and release if this is not something that feels comfortable. I just invite you to try it once. And if you're just like, that's not my thing, then go to your scissor. I do have some students that have never thought they would like doing this, but it's extremely therapeutic. So create that firm edge with your fingernail or the bottom of a glue stick. Okay. Scrapbooking paper is going to rip fairly easy. Okay. And now I have these smaller pieces. I have a tendency to work in square or rectangular shapes. Okay. So even in this case, if I just wanted to cover this up here, I would just hold this, fold this, and rip. Just never been somebody that has a scissor in my hand very often, but I know that there are people who love scissors, so embrace that. So I'm just going to use this little piece here. And if I wanted to, because we're going to make more than 3 cards, you can make as many cards as you want. Sometimes I'll take and turn this into a banner. Okay, by using little clothespins or paper clips and some string. And so that's a really fun way to make yourself your own I Am Affirmation banner. But you can start to take these little pieces and use them on some of your other cards, or just set them off to the side. Go look to see, okay, I want to tie in this purple color. I want my little paint sample to be up here. Paint samples are really fun to use. If you do use rubber stamps with paint samples, your ink will smear if you're using a rubber stamp. So you do want to be patient and let that dry because it's so slippery. It will smear right away. So just keep that in mind. But sometimes it's really fun to see the names, Radiant Raspberry Fizz. Okay. So you are just going to be continuing to do this to cover some backgrounds. Okay. And I want you to just have fun with it, explore using patterns and colors that maybe you would never have chosen to use. Okay. And so this one was already really small, and that fits right there. Okay. So again, I'm just kind of folding over. You don't really need to be watching me at this point. Just keep kind of focused into your cards. This practice, like I said, takes a little bit in the beginning, and the first 3 cards or the first card that you make, you're just getting started. So just allow yourself some space here. Okay. I have taught this as a class in the back room of Unglued, along with my studio. And usually people will be able to create, once we get started, for probably no more than 2 hours but 2 hours, your creativity just goes. And so if you have, you know, a little bit of time after I'm done sharing this practice, you know, stay with it, stay creating and just tuck into that. Now, I don't have really any yellow showing up in here. So that's where this is kind of my wild card. And I want to put a little strip of yellow up there. Now, if you're somebody who's like, I really like this system of 3 cards, you could also add 2 more cards here, or you could have all of the cards that you want if you're making a banner, okay? The banner allows you to see your affirmations, to put them somewhere in your space or your house, to have them, to see them. So if you have a mantle, you can hang it on your mantle. If you have a window in front of your sink, you can hang it there. If you've got an office little space, you can put it on, you know, your bulletin board or your wall. The card deck, which is what we're doing today. So if you don't happen to have any string or anything, your card deck is a way for you to shuffle the cards. I like to turn them over like this, and you could have them somewhere in your space, and then turn over your card. It says, I'm inspired. You practice reading out loud that affirmation. So if you're making this with some kiddos, this is a great practice to do right in the morning. So you can have them somewhere in your kitchen or somewhere by the door when you guys are heading out, and have everybody pick a card and speak out loud an affirmation. Okay. It's sticking off again off the opposite side. I'm just going to cut that off. Okay. Now, in one of these practices, or one of these cards, excuse me, my edges were rounded. So in this case, if you happen to have a round edger, there's a little punch that you can clip your edges on. You can make that, or if you really want a round edge, you can come and you can use a scissor and round them out, okay? So right now, I've got my backgrounds, okay? These are upside down to you, but they can still work either way. The more papers that you add, the more interesting they become. So in this case, I could push this one a little farther, which I think I'm going to take this yellow piece and add that yellow in. So that's really where it is little sections of different colored papers. And so starting to use something like a rectangular strip is a great way to keep going. Okay, washi tape is going to be another way for us to add in a pattern or an element. Okay, let's take a look and see if I have anything else here that I want to use. Ooh. Yeah, I think I'm feeling the feathers today. So I'm going to cover up a little bit of that striped. So that's the intention with the paper, is be willing to put things together that maybe you would never, but in this case you could. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different pieces of paper happening here, which really helps it look really interesting. Okay. One little tip with collaging is really get those edges glued down. So come around and get that glue stick under. Collage, it's one of the techniques to it is really smoothing down your edges so that it all looks like this is one surface, like it's all one piece of paper. So if you're working with some kiddos, this is a great opportunity to have them pay a little bit more attention to detail. So coming and being like, oh, I got a little edge here. And this is just kind of coming into doing some neater work, but just paying attention to that element of collaging and really having everything glued down. Okay, so really check those edges before you go any further. Once you get them ready and get them all glued down. Okay, so this is a little bit of a 2-part process. We started with our card backgrounds. After I show you this next step, you may prefer to start with the cutting of your word list first, because now I've got my little area. This is all the surface that you ever need to work with. Okay, my computer is in front of me, so I'd have a little bit more, but this is about as much space as you ever need to create. Okay, sometimes we think we need to have these big tables and all this space, but really a rolling cart with your supplies and some baskets with your supplies and just a little area like this works just fine. Okay. So cutting out your words is something that you may in the future say, you know what, I want to do this step first. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to set these to the side because we do need our words. We need our IMs and we need some positive words to add to our card. Once we cut these out and we add them, then we better know where do we want to put our rubber stamps, where do we want to put some washi tape, and so on. Okay, so this is where you are going to need a scissor. The one easy way to use your word list, which is actually a very young student showed me, just cut yours into strips. Okay. This piece of paper, once again, is just awkward and kind of big. Cut them into strips. Now, depending on what word list you have, one of them has a lot of words and one of them has, a few words. Okay. Are you going to be cutting out every single word? No. You're going to be looking at some words on the word list. And I want you to choose what words are catching your eye today. So these are all positive kind of words, but they're going to be words on here that make you feel a little bit uncomfortable because you don't believe them to be true about yourself. So for example, there might be the word creative here and you're like, I'm just not a creative person. Then you're going to go to the word creative. You're going to go, I forgive and release not feeling creative. And creative is going to be a word that you cut out. Okay. And you can stick it over here. Okay, so make a little pile. You're also going to find words that you know to be true about yourself, okay? You're also going to be cutting out those words, okay? So grateful caught my eye. I'm going to cut out grateful. So again, this is something that you can do prior to ever really getting out your supplies. And this is also where you can grab a little plate or a little envelope and you can get a bunch of words cut out and then you can have them just in a little space where you don't really have to do this step again, okay, until you really need more words, okay? Now, grateful, you can see has this extra piece right here. I can just lay it down for now. It's okay. I can clean that extra piece up when I'm ready to use it. So sometimes I'll show you that I've seen this take place. Okay, so the people will cut off the bottom and they'll literally just go like this. So you're getting that extra white, but if you're just like, you know what, I want all the words to work with. I'm just gonna do them all. Then just grab these single strips here and just cut through all of them. Okay, we can clean the edges up. We can clean the excess up when we're ready to use them. Okay. So whatever feels well for you today, we don't have to do, this is enough words to work with. So we can be done with these lists for now. And then you can just keep them in your little list area and come back to them when you need. Okay. Same with this youth word list. So what I would suggest if you like that technique where we made a pile is when you're cutting these in strips, try to cut it right here at the end of this word so you don't have too much excess of white to deal with. So a good friend is the one that's right at the end. That's where I trimmed it at, okay? So then that way you can kind of trim off this extra. One side is going to be really simple. It's right at the edge and you can go that way, okay? So work on a pile of words. Now, remember, I'm leading you through the practice, the process, but you can really go at your own time. So if you're still collaging your backgrounds, like Ashley said, this is going to live on the YouTube page for Unglued. So you'll be able to come back to this. So just be listening and keep creating. Okay. And think of any questions you might have. So let's go to our IMs. I'm just going to trim off one column of IMs. I usually just put one IM on each card, but then I'm going to use and invite you to use multiple positive words. Why? Just because you get to practice more words if you have more words on your card. Okay. If you want just one word like this, that's just fine as well. But I do invite you to try to put quite a few words on there. Okay. So I'm going to do the same process here, and I'm just going to cut out some IMs. And then you can kind of do where you're like, okay, that's extra. This is my I am. This is extra. I am. So just kind of get your rhythm of how this works for you. And I've already got enough I ams, but I'm just going to do this whole sheet. Put them in a little envelope or Ziploc bag when I'm done with my practice for today, and then I'll have some cut out. So you really can kind of see this as a little bit of a system, a little bit of a process. And some of us need that right now, just to feel a little bit more grounded, okay? And then this is where too, if you want to have like a little metal tin or a little garbage can somewhere and you want to keep your space a little neat, you can just move your scraps off to the side, okay? But then I also invite you, make a beautiful mess. Over the years of creating, I've been creating probably for the last, well, I've been creating since I was 6 years old, but I've been doing book arts and art journaling for probably the last 18 or 19. There were times I couldn't even see my table. There was just so many supplies. And over the years, and now for just the love of mason jars and baskets and things, I usually have my supplies in different things just to keep a little bit of order so I don't spend most of my time looking for my glue stick. Okay, so I'm going to stick my words off to the side. You can keep doing what you need. I'm just setting up in front of me. Now I'm going to find my cards again. Okay. Now these are going to be upside down to you. I'll show you when I'm done. But when you're ready, you're going to pick your I am and you're going to put that on your card wherever you would like. So this one's already trimmed down. Put a little glue on there. Okay. And then you get to choose, like, where do you want this? Like, I really like the flower up here, so I might actually put the I am a little bit lower because I want to keep that open. And so this is where you can embrace that system. You can add an I am to every card, or you can add an I am and then start adding some positive words. I'm going to add an I am to each card. Okay. So just have fun with it. Work a little bit out of your comfort zone. Use your I forgive and release. Okay. Because it's very common for that monkey mind in us to want to just kind of be commentating on what's happening. Okay. So I've got my I ams glued on. And then you can have fun with your words. You can just say, you know what? I'm just going to put some of my energy into these right now, and I'm just going to pick out random words to see what is it that I need for today. So confident, I'm going to put that off to the side, which I've actually never done this before, so this is even more exciting. Okay. Open. I do invite you actually to try this at some point, just because it is really unique to see what is your most present self choosing for you today. Grounded. All these are all relatable to me at this moment. Okay. Determined. So I'm going to choose to have 3 on each of my cards today, just because I know I need them. Sometimes you have to keep your eyes from wanting to look. Okay, here we go. Learning. Listening. Oh, I'm gonna have to, I keep looking down. We really want to know. That's very common for most of us, okay? Unfolding. And some of these words might be kind of new to you. Dedicated and beginning. But you will form a relationship to some of these words in your own way, okay? If any of the words make you uncomfortable, use your I forgive and release to clear some of the space, okay? It's very common. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just go and start trimming up some of my words. Just lay them below. And it's going to be normal. Some of you guys are really going to enjoy using the scissors and working with these small little pieces. And some of you are today like, I just want to put paper on the backgrounds. Okay. So that's another thing. If you want to just spend the rest of the practice doing backgrounds right now, and then maybe next weekend or later today, you want to add your words, you can work in it in your own time. Nothing has to be finished. But then I do invite you to embrace the practice and have one card with me completed, just so that you know that you can do it. Okay. So You can put your words anywhere you want to. You can have them at a diagonal. You can have them clustered down in one row. You can have them sticking off the edges. So again, try different patterns, but also embrace what feels well for you. So there's a combination of being in and out of your comfort zone. Okay. And then again, make sure when you're gluing down your words that you are getting those edges glued down. Okay. You are going to get a little bit of a sticky glue finger. That's normal. Okay. If you are working with younger kids and they don't like glue on their fingers, that is also very common. So one thing that I've done working with my younger students is I will have them cut the words and then I will let them know I'll help you do the gluing, just because positive words and having kiddos around positive words like this, everybody needs them. We all need them. But it's really helpful to say, you know what, I'm willing to help you with this part of the process, just to be able to have them see them and look at them and so on. Okay. So now I've got my words glued down. Oh, I need to add another one there. Okay. So again, you keep going right where you are. You know, I'm only gonna have 2. I've changed my mind. I'm doing 2 on that card. Okay. So once you get your backgrounds and once you get your words, the remaining part of decorating your cards is just adding extra elements that you'll have. So this is where I'm just going to go through and show you what are some of the things that I do to my cards to add a little bit of pizzazz to them. So I like using a fine tip Sharpie or a Papermate pen, and I like to go around my words and box them in. So I'll show you this. I'm going to go and box them in. Now I can do a box like this. It's okay if it's a little crooked, forgive and release. Okay, this is just part of the process. I'm also going to show you that you can go closer to the word. This just helps the words kind of stand off the page. And then I'm going to show you, I'm going to darken the one I just did as well, to just show you that. So now we've got it where I slowly went around and used the edge of the paper on grounded. And then here I just darkened this one again. I'm also going to show you something here, that if this seems to happen where you kind of lose your edges, this is also fine to have that. If all of a sudden you're like, oops, I moved over there, just embrace that. Okay, that's just fine. You can also fill in those little loops right there, those little holes. Okay, you don't have to do every word, but I do find that it helps you see them. Okay, so again, if you have a love for pens, this is something that you can do. Okay, also, you don't have to use black if you've got some metallic pens, or maybe you want to pick a color that will show up on whatever paper you're using. Just keep that in mind. This is also a great way if you are enjoying art journaling to take old books. For example, the book Eat, Pray, Love. Lots of fun words in that book, lots of inspirational words. It's a great way to use those pages and come in with a black pen and do some kind of what they say sometimes like found poetry, and cut box in some words and just use a section of that paper for your background. So I don't think I happen to have any off to the side, but using books that you're no longer, reading. This is not a book page, but for example, the words light of love, I could box that in here. I could also use some oil pastel. I'll show you in a moment on how to highlight that. So a black pen is a great way to just emphasize maybe something that you found on a dictionary page. It's really fun to use old book pages and dictionary pages because you often are pulling things that you're relating with at the time. Okay. So I've went through and I've boxed everything. Okay. This is where I'm going to come in. I picked a few washi tapes out. Okay, interesting enough, I picked these tapes before I ever picked any of the paper. This is all I have here on my table, and they all seem to match. So again, you'll have a tendency to surprise yourself as you tuck into the creative practice. The way that we begin our practice is not the way that we arrive or finish. Okay, so washi tape is a decorative tape. You can find this at craft stores, Target, Walmart, Amazon. I'll heads up over the years. Sometimes if you find an off brand of tape, they don't come off as easily. So it's hard to know, but just kind of be mindful of that. Most of the tapes you get in stores work pretty well. I like having some of this thin tape. So I'm just going to come in and I'm going to add some washi tape at the bottom there. Then I might say, okay, I want to add another piece over here at the top. Washi tape is also a little bit repositionable, okay? And then you just rip. It's much easier to rip than it is to grab your scissor, okay? Let's talk about using big pieces of washi tape. So the thicker tape, if you're somebody who really embraces this ripping technique, use small pieces of tape, okay? You see how it's between my fingers. Go ahead and just start to tear down the center. If you like this kind of rough edge look, now you've got two smaller pieces. Smaller pieces are nice just because you just may want to put a little accent up at the top here. Okay, right up here. And then because I have yellow, I'm just kind of trying to take a look. Where do I want this other piece? I can come and lay it right over a little bit of the one that I had just put on. Okay. Doesn't have to go all the way to the edge. Okay, but you're starting to see that the more we begin to add, the more interesting our cards begin to look. Okay, keep going, don't stop. Really, I have to say that there is no way. If you keep adding to a card, I'll be really honest with you, you cannot ruin it. Okay, it just makes it more interesting. Okay, so here's another thin style of tape. And I think I'm just going to layer below this one. So this is a really fun way as well to just double tapes. Okay. Can also run a tape going the vertical way, but you can also use this at a diagonal. I've seen people diagonal their tape. You can use washi tape for backgrounds. Okay. And part of you may be like, well, I don't know if that really matches that. I forgive and release. Practice forgiving and releasing. And what will happen is you'll start to see your cards differently. Okay. You make a little bit of space. And then I got one more tape here. I don't. I'll use just a little piece. I kind of like these gold flowers that are happening here. Okay. And like I said, if you're just not feeling a card and you're not able to really move through it, forgive and release, set it off to the side and create some more. Something about working with 3 cards for me has really helped me kind of shift. I'm not completely focused on one card and I'm seeing how they're all working together. But again, like I said, embrace different cards. And if you just want to work with one, that's just fine. Okay. So oil pastels are another tool that I had mentioned. This is a great way to add some color. Teal is one of my common colors that I use. And I'm going to I like to add vertical or horizontal strips. So I'm going to push down on this and I'm going to make a line. Okay. Now I'm going to come with my finger and I'm just going to smudge. I'm not smudging everywhere. I'm just smudging this line. Okay. And then I want to tie this in a little bit. I want to add some of this up here. So it works great right above your washi tape. Okay, it's okay if I get a little bit on the tape. Okay. And I'm gonna use the teal right between my 2 tapes. Okay. So I'm gonna go right in between those. Looks a little bit different on the tape. And you're gonna get a little bit on your fingers, just smush them off like this. Okay. But this is a great way to add some extra color. I can also come in with, sometimes you'll be able to find like metallics. Some of the bigger kits will have metallics. Oil pastels are found usually in the professional art supplies at Michael's or Hobby Lobby, where you find canvases and paint and things. So that's where they sit. This is a 12 pack. I think they make all the way up to a 36, and you can get every color under the sun. And like I said, they're not wet. So it allows you to just keep on going. So then take a look at what other colors are showing up. I have purple right here. Let's bring in some purple, okay? So I'm actually gonna come right next to my teal, and I'm just gonna add a little bit of purple. I'm just tying in colors, but I'm also working out of my comfort zone, okay? I'm gonna make a little strip up here. So now we got more things are happening to the card. Okay. So vertical and horizontal strips for your oil pastels is the way that I use it, but feel free to try it in any way. Yellow is a great one to use as a highlighter. Okay, this is just a broken piece. But if you wanted to come around one of your words, just make sure you use a clean finger, okay? Listening, you can see through it. But if I were to do teal over that, we're not gonna see that. Okay, so yellow is a highlighter you can use to put over some words that you want to bring attention to. Also, for example, light of love, okay? I can come in here and now I've emphasized that. So if I was using this on my card, okay? So one of the other tools that I had mentioned was some rubber stamps. So a black ink pad is going to be the best. I don't use colored inks, even though they're really fun, because I don't want to have to wash my stamps, and I don't want to have different stamps for different colors. And if you try to mix colors, soon everything just begins to get brown and ruined, okay? So this is just a fun little stamp here. I'm going to show you how you can use stamps to make a little bit of a pattern and kind of, I like to use the word grunge up your card a little bit. So I'm going to get some ink on here, and then I'm going to push down, but now I'm not going to get any more ink. And I'm going to push, 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 and I'm going to keep going. And it creates this faded pattern. So I was able to go right over my word without it really doing anything because my initial stamp was right here. Great way to add some more element to the card. Okay. So if I wanted to, I could carry this stamp over, but I do like my arrow stamp here. So I'm going to grab some of that. Same thing. I'm going to go right underneath the IM, but then I'm going to stamp right here. Okay. So my initial stamp and then my second one fades. So it really does put kind of a modern spin on your use for rubber stamps. And then I'm going to come here with my little symbol here, and I'm just going to come down here at the bottom. So rubber stamps, great way to make a pattern. I do like to have a little paper plate near my desk, and I'll just set all my stamps down on the paper plate. So, or you can flip them up like this if you need. Okay. So we're coming into our 1 hour close. I think this is the fastest practice I ever felt. I want to invite you that if you have a question, let me know right now. I'm here. Unmute yourself. You don't have to be on video, or send me a chat. A couple of things. Keep building your cards. And have a basket with some supplies. Have that paper basket. I do invite you that when I'm done with today's practice, I clean up all my supplies, I put them in my basket so that you have an open table. A lot of times people are working right at their dining table and they need to use that for, dinner tonight. Have a basket, have a tote, definitely an excuse to go find one of those fabric totes that you love, or some that are behind me, but have your supplies just set off that way. Also, it's getting nice out. So when it's not too windy, you can take your basket outside and work outside. You can take this on a little camping trip. You can take it out to the lake, and just have a little tote bag of supplies. You'll find that you really don't need a lot. If I had to work with this exact same supplies and only these washi tapes, I know that I would still feel okay. Okay. And then also give yourself permission to trade out some of your supplies when it feels well. I do have in our journaling course, that is an online course, you'll see me talking and I go through, let's see if I can find it real quick. I don't know if I have it available. Here it is. I also will share in that course on how to make an affirmation journal. So same concept, but working on a larger piece of paper. So if you do enjoy what you're doing today, that course does include this video as well. Send me an email at artistnicholeray@gmail.com and I'll send you a code to take a percentage off on that course. So artofdailypractice.com, you go under self-guided courses and then scroll down and there is a collage course. If you're interested in hand lettering, you'll want to tune into Unglued, get on their Facebook page on March 23rd. I am teaching a creative hand lettering practice, including I Forgive and Release is going to be in there. And you can learn how to cultivate your handwriting. And there are kits available. So I do believe the deadline might be right around the 16th. So make sure you tuck into that. You're welcome, Sue. Yes, washi tape for sure. Yes, Randy, it's okay. We all overthink it. Keep forgiving and keep forgiving in all areas of your life, because the more you use that practice, the more you see how you shift. If you need peace, peace will come. If you need confidence, confidence comes. Your faith gets stronger and it helps you stay more present, okay? So I just want to say thank you to everyone who has joined. Reach out to me via email or add me on Facebook under Nichole Ray, artist Nichole Ray in parentheses. You'll see my face as my icon, or artist Nichole Ray at Instagram. And I just want to say thank you very much for showing up, because this means a lot to me, as well as the Unglued Craft Fest. It's such a new time for all of us right now, and you're really supporting artists and makers and crafters, and we just want to say thank you. And so no matter where you are, it means a lot, and I am grateful. So let's just see here. We got one more, Laurel. Yes, tiles. I was thinking about that. We made I Am Affirmation tiles, bathtub tiles. We collaged them and then put Mod Podge on them and then put little felt pieces. And so that's a great way if you want to take this practice into something else. Yes, and so great. We all notice, like right now, not to feel a lot of inspiration, not to feel a lot of creativity. Nothing is wrong with you. As a collective, we're all feeling that. But if you start to see this as it's just a practice, it's a way to bring inspiration, healing, and guidance into your life. It helps you go through. So embrace that resistance, keep forgiving, say hello, and definitely go to the virtual market today and support makers and artists and buy some cool stuff, and then connect with Unglued's upcoming events. So I'm signing off. Thank you so much. And if you need this video again, along with other different creative classes that happened over the weekend, it sounds like Unglued's got their first time YouTube channel. So thank you, everyone. Have a happy Sunday, and thank you for creating with me.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. If anybody is still here and you want to show me your cards, I would love to see them. You can put them right in front of your face like this. If you're just not feeling your face, feel free to do that as well. So. Awesome. Let's see this. Let me get my view switched here real quick. I'm going to take a little picture here. Awesome. Way to go. And see, it's so fun when you see other people's cards, because everybody's cards look different. So thank you very much for showing up. Ooh, I love that gray flower. Great way of also ripping your paper and starting to really see the difference between two people's cards there. So awesome. Thank you so much. Have a great day. Keep creating. Oh, yes. Thank you. Thank you. Great, looks good. Keep creating and feel free to send a photo my way and share your finished cards when you can.